Welcome back to Deep.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Welcome back to D2 Wrenchworks, and you are looking at my dream build PC, which is pretty much done now. Thank goodness. I've been having a ton of fun on it, whether it be the sim racing I've put together or doing a bunch of other editing, because man, it is... I can't believe how fast this is crushing my YouTube videos. I have 4 displays, one to my big TV in my living room, and then I have 3 here. So, I mean, I could literally have all 4 displays on with one of them running the editing system, processing the video, and my computer doesn't even go up past 50% CPU usage at all. Pretty crazy. And the heat's actually great because I want to stick to a airflow system. I didn't want to go water cooled just for simplicity's sake. Also because I want to stay on a little bit of a cheaper budget. I already had some pretty good fans to add in, and I knew I wanted to get some nice ones up front. So it kind of made the most sense for me. And let's get into it. The front end is where we're going to start because the airflow, as its name, P4000D airflow from Corsair, it does flow crazy air. When I'm really taxing it, the highest I can get is mid-peak 70s. I'll get around 77 at the very most Celsius, which is, for something like this, it's actually pretty good. As you can see here, the little mesh design pops right off super easily. And we have a really easy, super easy to clean filter. These are very cool. And also it seals up super well against these fans. And let's get into that because that is no joke one of my favorite parts of this system. Corsair makes these LL series fans, and I will show you what they look like here all lit up. This is the box you get them in. I got a triple setup because I wanted y'all to match here, of course. And these are not only some very nice fans that spin up super fast and super quiet, but they have by far the nicest LED system I've ever seen in my life. I think there's 16 in each fan. I have a little picture here I could show you. I saw when I bought them. It's a crazy breakdown of how nice they are. Super high quality. The separate fan blades are very nice. There's all their own LEDs built in there. And then the perimeter, the actual bracketry of the fan, has its own RGB LEDs in there as well. It looks sick. IQ from Corsair is a program you could download, and it will allow you to synchronize all of these if you had other Corsair products or other RGB products that are also LED. And it's pretty cool. It also comes with a controller setup so you can run all of your fans into one so that program will work. Moving on now, we are going to get to the goodies. Let's see what's in the box. All right, so one of my favorite parts too is I do like a nice tempered glass. It gives it a little sleek look, but I do have to admit it is a little too dark. I will be adding some lights on the inside because I haven't put any in yet. And that is like my final 1% because it really is totally done. While I'm in here, I might as well stick some lights in while I'm doing this video. Plus, they match the rest of it, so, you know, I might as well stay with it. Boom.
Oh,
how about that? Man, there's a lot going on in here and everything is big, if you can't tell. Everything is quite large in here. So, first of all, we'll start with what you can't really see. I don't know if you could see. There's a little, in the space of the cooler here, there's a Dragon from MSI. This is a MSI Z690 chipset. This specific model is a Z690 Edge Wi-Fi. This is a DDR4. They also make a DDR5. Again, this is like the newest stuff. I don't really care for the newest, the best. I really wanted to stick to budget stuff. Corsair actually has a P5000 case out. Again, I don't want the latest, greatest. I want what's best for the money. And this DDR4, not just motherboard best, but also the RAM is going to be the best for its money. Also, one of my favorite things, I don't really care too much about the Wi-Fi. It's a nice little feature, but I don't take my computer anywhere very often, so I don't really need Wi-Fi. I'm just always hardwired with the LAN cable. That's not the only reason I wanted to get this. So it also has a excellent Bluetooth codec and audio codec built into this. So whenever I'm doing my little sim racing setup over here, I don't have speakers on my, like a nice speaker setup yet. So I use this little Bluetooth guy from Amazon, a little Anchor soundbar. And all I got to do is just power it right on, set it down next to me. I could put it away afterwards when I'm done. Having the Bluetooth is definitely a big bonus. You would probably not think so, but for me it is. One thing I didn't want to forget about the case setup here, you can actually fit 4 hard drives. I don't have it in here anymore, but this is actually a hard drive bay for just two normal hard drives that you could, if you had SSDs, you would just stick in here with adapters probably because they'd be a lot smaller, but I don't need it and I wanted the space in there. So another good thing is you could just undo all these little screws here and it pops right out and you could just set it in storage. Not only can you fit the radiators, and it will also fit 6 fans. So we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then 1 in the back here. And the biggest you'll be able to fit up here is 2 140 millimeters. And if you wanted to do a triple like I have up front, they have to stay 120 millimeters. Also, rear biggest it will fit is 120 millimeter. But these are still, I mean, a crazy amount of airflow I get before I even put in the nicer GPU. Up top, what I have here is the Arctic F-14s. And you can see this also has a very nice dust setup that comes right off. Very cool, strong magnetic setup that goes right on and off easy. It does excellent. Great way to push heat out from the CPU cooler I have facing that direction. And these are actually probably some of the best fans I could get from the money. I had them in my old computer, and I actually stole them and brought them over to this one because they're actually really good. Now, for probably one of the most fun parts of the build, because, I don't know, CPU coolers look awesome to me. Kind of like expensive car parts, I guess. And you can't miss it, man. I mean, this thing is freaking huge right here. And this is a Noctua NHD15 setup. Mine's in Chromax Black. You can get all kinds of different colors. I chose to get the dual fan setup as well. One of the craziest things is these also have 140 millimeter fans. And you can actually see this one here is actually offset a little bit. This has a lot to do with the clearance stuff I was talking about earlier. When you do get this Noctua and you try to mate it to this motherboard setup, in this case, you cannot get a higher stack RAM. It has to be low stack. And if you did get higher stack, which is essentially RGB RAM, that's really all this is. It's a higher stack because it has the lighting up top. Without it, it's obviously much shorter. I tried to get the non-RGB, to tell you the truth, from the get-go. It's a little cheaper. It's just as fast as other stuff. It's what I could get in stock, so it's what I grabbed. It's really up to you. That's the only reason this fan is a little bit off by about 10 millimeters or so. If I went and got the non-RGB RAM, you would be able to just have it flush just like this other one is. Honestly, it does the same exact. This fan's so big, only a little bit is just moving it, and it's actually, if anything, just moving it throughout the case anyways to the back. So no big deal there. It is a push-pull setup right now. You can arrange them however you wanted. I could have also just taken this and moved it to the other side as well, but I don't really care, to tell you the truth. Also, you have the ability on this Noctua to actually mount it this way 90 degrees, so you could have the 2 coolers going up and down. It's really just user preference. It's up to how you want to have it. I was worried about, with my big card I was having coming soon, I didn't want to have any issues with the card, and also I felt like the nice fans, better airflow this way. This is one of the highest performing CPU coolers on the market, though. I mean, it is freaking huge and it looks super baller. In my hand, you should see this thing. It looks like I'm holding a small basketball. It's kind of cool to see like how far technology has come. On my old one, I bought around in 2015 or something like that. Didn't seem that long ago, but I guess in CPU years it really is, when technology has changed so much. So cool to see. Great buy. These are not too expensive. I think they're around $89, $99, something like that. I didn't want to forget this. The Noctua, if I could rate it, I'd say 4.8 stars. I mean, almost 5, but just for the money you're spending, I was a little buggered about the CPU thermal paste that they give you when you put on the new cooler. It's not very nice. This one by G-Lid, whatever. They have a GC Extreme brand. This is super, super efficient. A lot of the nerds, if you're like me out there, I always try to read reviews and check specs and stats versus other stuff. And the toolage on this is actually a really nice syringe setup. It's super easy to handle, and you could be very, you almost have to be surgical, especially when you're in a little area like this, putting on your paste. Not only is this super efficient, but you're spending a little extra money to have a better tooling system. The Noctua was kind of a pain to get to come out, and it wasn't coming out clean. It was kind of coming out in like almost broken blobs, and it was kind of annoying, but I got it settled. And I did buy this for the future though, because this does rate a lot higher. Like I said, heat on this is kind of a big deal. So yeah, this is something you wanted to make sure and buy though. Now we're gonna move on to the power supply. You can't see it, but this is what it looks like. This is a RM850X by Corsair. I previously had a 750 in my other one. It did excellent. I can't really have any complaints. It's quiet. It does great. This is, I needed, for my new video card, I knew I needed at least a 750 this time. So again, I wanted to overshoot it a little bit. In this case, you do have to worry. I do know some people are saying they can't fit 1,000 watt in here. And 1,000 is a lot. I'm trying to stay within my range. I overshot it a little bit last time, thinking I was going to rebuild it. And I chose to rebuild into something completely new. So now that I knew I'm going to keep this where it's at, I'm going to stay with the 850, and I'm totally pleased. It fit with no issues. We can actually open it up on the other side here so you can see. And it fits great in here. It does get quite tight on the top and bottom area, but your actual front and back vertical distance isn't bad at all. The hard drive bay still fit in here easily, but as you can see, where I got the controller and all of this right in here, you might be able to see this little box at the bottom. That is where wiring and everything is getting quite tight. And I did want to try to keep it nice and clean, so I think it came out nice though, and it did come with a ton of wires to run everything. The newer wiring as well, I like that it has the braided finishing on it. It makes it look a lot cleaner, especially for when we do our GPU cabling. So this is a pretty good, clean little design. These were about $150. They might be a little cheaper now. So if you are doing a build, this is pretty much a gold standard, I would say. Quiet as heck. And also it has a 135 millimeter fan in there. So you have 7 quite large fans in your computer now if you do this build. While we're on this side, let's talk about the hard drives. We have a Crucial MX500 SSD in here. For the money, this is literally one of the highest ranking things you could find. They are super fast. When I bought this, actually, last summer, I thought I was going to upgrade my old build, and that's when I decided I'll just wait till the end of the year and I'll do my own build because prices were still so high. I paid $100 for this. Of course, now, like 2 months ago, they dropped down to $50. So that's just the way it is, which actually makes this a spectacular deal, though. I'm not even kidding you. You have the ability to mount a second one in here. I chose not to. I actually went and put in a M2 hard drive, which goes in on the other side here. Believe it or not, it's actually underneath, in between this CPU cooler and our GPU here. It's quite tight, but the thing is literally only this big. It is so small, and it's like a small section of ruler. It's a M2 SSD by Western Digital, and is there a Western Digital Black. That is by far the fastest I could find for the money, and can't complain at all. They are a little spendy, and the cool thing is you could fit 2 of them in these motherboards too. So they have little heat sinks with lights over there. The Dragon also lights up as well, so that's kind of neat. It's also hard to see in here, so I'll have to add on a little section, but way underneath this fan, as I mentioned, is the Corsair. This is Vengeance Pro, the RGB version. The cool thing is, though, we have up to 3600 megahertz. The one thing you do have to do if you want to do this setup, you have to go into your BIOS and turn it on. I didn't do that at first, so actually it was only running at 2133, which is quite slow for what you're paying for, but once you turn on your XMP and your BIOS, it runs and it flies. Well, as I mentioned, it does its own cool little design and all of that, and it does have its stack height problems, but for the money and for it being in stock everywhere, very good buy. One thing I didn't want to forget as well, on the case header up here, we do have a very cool setup. Not only is there just your normal headphone jack, which is nice for when you're gaming. You know, you want to do chat, you can just unplug your headphones and put it away after you're done. I have a nice Type-C plug here. I have a Samsung, so that was awesome to see. And then a newer USB too, which was very, very helpful when I was actually transferring all my files over and setting up this whole thing. So, cool little features to have. Kind of a must-have if you ask me. As well as, on the bottom, I brought this up in part 1. You always want to have a dust filtration screen, whatever you want to call it, here on the bottom that's easy to get to, especially if you put your CPU under a desk like I do. Now, for one of the hardest parts to complete this build, and man, I'm so glad to get my old 1060 out of here because, like I mentioned before in part 1, it was really bottlenecking the system. These were on sale for $489 or something like that at Micro Center. You could get them on Amazon about the same right now. This one has 16 gigabytes which is a huge difference over my 3 GB before. So it's obviously much faster. I mean, this thing is just huge. It has a massive heatsink. It has a triple fan setup, which is something I didn't want to cheap out on as well. I wanted to get a good fan setup to go on, complement the rest of my setup, and it works flawlessly, as I mentioned. This is actually built for supposedly any 4K gaming. I don't really have anything that does ray tracing or any of this fancy new stuff. Most of the games I play are already 10 years old, so they're not even anywhere up to spec for this, to tell you the truth. But this ranks very well for the cost. If you're looking to spend around 500 or so, you're going to have a hard time beating it. It doesn't rank that far away from a 6800 XT either. Between 4K Ultra, and that's obviously your best specs in gaming. So if you did 4K, this 6800 only ranks 11 frames per second lower than the 6800 XT. So, I mean, are you going to pay a ton more money for only 11 frames per second more? Me? No. And to tell you the truth, I don't even play in 4K right now. What I have behind here is a 32-inch AOC monitor, and that is only 1440p, and that is plenty for me. So at 1440p, the difference is even less marginal. I believe it is 8 frames per second, so not a big difference there at all. It ranks very high for its cost. Pretty good bang for its buck, and I'm extremely pleased with it. It's the perfect icing on the cake, I guess you could say, really. The perfect complement to the rest of the build. And it's been a total blast. The one thing, if you have a slick little eye here and you're already a gamer dude like me, you will notice that the GPU is actually daisy chained. That's why it's making this little U shape. And that is something you don't want to do. For whatever reason, even though these are nice power cables here that you get from Corsair, and it's not just Corsair, any power supply you get is going to do the same thing. They give you this daisy chain, and it looks like a double plug, but really it's not. It's not actually a good idea to do this if you have a double setup like I do, and when you unplug the plugs here, you have 2x8 pins, and there's 2 of them, so 2 2x8s. You always want to run a separate power cord. What I think I'm going to do to keep the wiring nice and clean is I'll run a little zip tie probably right about here to keep the pigtail out of the way, and then I could use the rest of it all nice and clean. We'll have 2 separate powers running there. And apparently, I've seen a video from a guy named JZ2Cents, who's a big-time builder. He actually did a test on the daisy chain versus 2 power cords, and it did, I don't know if it's a cleaner setup or, the cleaner power, delivery, or whatever it may be, but it did better. After 3 tests, it averaged higher with the 2 power cord setup. So I have it, I'm going to do it, and that, I think, pretty much completes the build. Obviously, as I mentioned in part 1, I already have one of these little GPU braces. This actually does a big difference. You want to see. You see it does a little sag a little bit there. So now it's set up perfectly and nice and good. The one part to finish it all here is the Corsair LED strips. And these are pretty awesome. This is the RGB LED Lightning Pro. I did not get, this is called the Pro because it comes with a whole kit of strips and it comes with the wiring to connect it all. You can also get the controller and the node and all of that. I mentioned earlier that my fan came with. You could buy the fans with the controller, or you could buy the strips with the controller. I just bought it strips normally. I already have the controller to wire it all into, luckily. So this will be very easy to connect and it won't be a big deal at all. It's going to look very cool. I do like the fact that you have all these separate strips here that you can really put wherever you want. And you can see just how nicely they magnetize to it all. Now, obviously, I'm not going to put these there because the case has to close on this, but you could see how you could set it up. And the nicest part of it all is they're that strong, and it's probably hard to see, but these have 3M backing on it. So you actually have double-sided tape to really fixate it once you get it all wired up and plugged in. Then you could go ahead and set it up, but it's very easy to kind of like drop it and see where you want. So, cool little setup, and I mentioned the wiring it has right here. You have the Corsair wiring to hook it all up. And it'll all be controlled by IQ, and I'll get some really cool designs here to throw in and add to the intro video. You see the 2 separate wires here. But yeah, great. This is $45. A little bit of frivolous spending. Sue me. What am I going to do? I saved the money because this GPU doesn't come with all kinds of crazy RGB fans or any of that. So save the money on the GPU to get some nice little case lighting. And I mean, I do have to admit, it is a little dark. It is kind of a bummer to have all this cool stuff and not really be able to see it all, you know. So, and I mean, that's pretty much it. That seals the deal. That puts us in the history books. Another fun project done. But man, this one, yeah, it's been a little bit of a wild ride putting it all together on my own and running into little issues here and there, but trying to figure out what's compatible and what isn't and all this other nonsense and trying to find the parts and not get price gouged. It's been fun. I'll have everything in the description as normal. If you guys had enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe. You could find my Patreon if you want to support the channel there. It goes directly into the channel as usual. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. Again, I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of different stuff. I think the next one we're going to do is floating shelves. So put these big boys, sand them down, stain them, cut them up, all this fun stuff. I got a cool design I just did. So that will be my next project. And actually, maybe not. I actually have a Forerunner radio as well I need to install in our Forerunner. So who knows? I do appreciate the compliments on changing things up and the new video style though. And man, I can tell you though, spending a little money and getting something this cool has taken me a long ways, and can't wait to keep doing more to the channel and keep adding to it. So have a good day, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.